Hi everyone, welcome back to Clat Possible YouTube channel. Today we are going to go through the remaining part of March 2026 current legal affairs. The first part is already on the channel Clat Possible. You can go and watch it if you haven't done it already. Those who have not yet subscribed the channel, please do that because we are doing a lot of sessions which are absolutely relevant and helpful for your examination. And you will immensely benefit from these sessions, I believe. And therefore, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that at the earliest without anything. All right. So this session is, like I said, is going to cover the rest of the events that happen in the second part of March. So watch it till the end to get the maximum benefit out of this. These topics are handpicked carefully, and there are basically two kinds of questions which are anticipated from these topics. Number one is legal reasoning questions. That is, you might expect passages on these topics and inferential or comprehension or deductive legal reasoning based questions. And number two, you can also expect a few legal knowledge based questions out of the same topics, right? So if you want, you can also start making notes at your convenience, whatever you think is relevant and important for you that you want to retain. I'll also keep telling you what is important, what is more important, so you can accordingly make your notes. Okay. So starting with the session, the first news that we have is something which was widely talked about, and that is transgenders definition, transgenders status in the new Transgenders Act, which was made this bill of 2026. So this was presented in Lok Sabha on March 13, and the ministry's name is important. That is Social Justice and Empowerment. So this is one legal knowledge question which is expected out of here: is which ministry deals with or dealt with this law, which is protection of rights and amendment in the transgenders bill, right? What has happened majorly is there is a shift in the legal definition. If you look at the current scenario, it says the bill moved away from 2029 acts. Previously, it had a broad definition of gender, and it included gender mismatch with birth assignment also, right? It included that if a person who was he was assigned a different gender from what he currently has, that was a broad definition, and used to cover almost all cases of transgender people of different variety, of different of a lot of deviations from the normal characteristics. But now, if you look at now, the focus has been on the specifically listed categories. The now, what are the categories here? So this becomes important. Legal reasoning questions are expected from this part. Social cultural identities, that is Skinner, Hinjra, uh, Aravani, Jokta, and persons with intersex variations, chromosomal or hormonal variations, right? So although I don't really expect a legal GK question from this part because it becomes too technical, but definitely you can expect a passage from this part. So what has happened is previously there was a broad category that included all variations, but now the categories are specifically listed and restricted. Okay, आगे देखते हैं इसमें क्या है. What has been removed? Now this becomes a potential legal knowledge question. The bill has removed finally the words like trans man, trans woman, gender queer from the definition. So yeah, definitely becomes a very good question from legal knowledge, and you might expect it independently also in a passage which might be related to transgenders law or may not be related to it. So yeah, you should retain these. What has been removed, what has been added is not so important. What has been removed is more important here. Now there are new inclusions like eunuchs that has been included, and of course persons who have been forced into transgender identity via mutilation, castration, or chemical or hormonal procedures. Now you see, these are artificial. This is a it's a case that covers artificial status of being a transgender. So yeah, one possible legal GK question that could come up is what is significantly different from the previous law. So we can say that the previous law contained only people who were naturally transgenders, but now the new law also includes people who have been artificially converted into transgenders, okay, by way of medical procedures, mutilation, or castration for that matter. So yes, you should write down these significant changes. And what has been specifically excluded is uh, expressly. You see, expressly it has excluded persons based on different sexual orientation, because these are the people who are otherwise known as homosexuals. So of course, the people who belong to homosexual community, or who have same sex orientation, right? So that has not been included, of course, because orientation is different from identity. Now, this is where you can get a legal passage from, reasoning based questions from, that what is the difference between sexual identity and sexual orientation. So, identity refers to what is the gender. For instance, it is male, female, or transgender. There are only three genders as per the identity. But orientation is the sexual preference of a person, right? If a person prefers to be in a homogeneous relationship, if a man prefers to have a sexual relationship with another man, then it will be called homosexual. So his orientation will be homosexuality, correct? If there is a person, there is a woman who prefers to have sexual activity or sexual relationship with another woman, then it will be again called homosexuality. So that also is based on sexual orientation. So sexual preference is sexual orientation, right? A person may be homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual. But the second category, which is about orientation, does not find any place in the transgenders law. And clearly we know the reason, because the law is about identity and not orientation. Okay, I hope it is clear. There could be a massive debate around it, and you can expect a good question also, that what is the difference between identity and orientation. Another thing which has happened is, now I don't expect a legal knowledge question from here, but yeah, legal reasoning questions can be expected. So there has been enhancement of offenses in cases of forced identity. Like I said, if there is an artificial process carried out to make somebody convert into a transgender, uh, then there are going to be certain offenses for that. So for kidnapping in grievous hurt, is it's a 10 year of punishment to maximum life with 2 lakh rupees of fine. If the same thing is committed with a child, then there is life imprisonment, which is the minimum punishment, and also 5 lakh rupees fine. Then if there is a forced begging, for that we can clearly see 5 to 10 years, and there is also fine. And if the same thing is done with the child, then it's 10 to 14 years with 3 lakh rupees of fine. So no need to remember this, because like I said, reasoning based questions are more expected from this part. But yeah, you can also do an independent research on your at your convenience on the transgender law, so that you will, if you read 3 4 articles, I would suggest read 3 to 4 articles on transgender act, bill, and relevant provisions, so that you get maximum coverage on your own, right? All right. Uh, yeah, so this is just what we discussed a while ago. Uh, the existing offenses talk about denying access to public places, whereas the focus now has been shifted to forced identity as well, right? So this was the crux of the entire law. Uh, Remember one thing, that you don't have to really, mug up all the provisions and changes that have happened in the law. Only the significant changes are important for you. Okay. Coming to the next news, what has happened is about the religious conversion versus SC status. Okay. In other words, we can say that what is the relationship between a religion and a scheduled caste as a community. Let's say what the court has said. First, you can go through this, and then I'll explain that to you in a bit. So as you can see, uh, the name of the case is not important to remember. The ruling is important. The Supreme Court has said that conversion to religion other than Hinduism, Sikhism, or Buddhism results in the immediate and complete loss, immediate and complete loss of the SC status. That means the SC status is limited to Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism only. Yes. So the status of a scheduled caste is based on religion and specific religions only. It is not a religiously neutral principle. So if there is any conversion other than these, then the person will lose the SC status. For example, if somebody who belonged to SC category and then he converted to Islam or converted to Christianity for that matter, then he will completely lose the SC status and all the benefits attached to it, right? Not just the status, also all the benefits which are attached to it. You can see there is an absolute bar under clause 3 of the Constitution Order 1950, and it is very importantly said that a person cannot simultaneously practice a religion like Christianity and claim SC benefits. All right, that's one thing. So in the entire slide, all you need to remember is these three religions which grant, approve the SC status. Only three religions. That's something that you should remember. That is Hinduism, Sikhism, and Buddhism. And in fact, it's easier to remember because these three religions are the part of Hindu religion. Now, what is the religious distinction here? So you can see that the court drew a sharp legal distinction. So for SCs, it is religion linked. Very clearly explained already. It is religion linked, religion based, or I would say religiously biased community, and the membership is limited to these communities. Then we have STs for which it is identity linked. Very important. See, the judgment here is only affecting the status of SC members, not the members of ST community, because ST community is not based on gender, but is actually identity based. Okay, that means the 1950 order does not have a religion based exclusion for STs. So STs can belong to any religion, any subset of religion, that is still okay. And they can continue getting the benefits of ST. For example, there is a Hindu ST who later converted to Islam will continue to remain an ST and will also continue to get the benefits out of it. Correct? So yeah. From this part, I expect legal reasoning questions. They might ask some aptitude-based questions. They might ask, questions based on the distinction between religion-linked and identity-linked. And I think now, after this understanding, you will be able to solve it. So it was a short piece of legal news. But the next one that we have is about debt recovery and abatement to suicide, and it's a very important piece of law which has been written down. Please go through it once, then we'll discuss. Right. So, what is abatement to suicide? Uh, when a person commits suicide, and if it comes to the knowledge that that person was motivated or encouraged, or in other words, compelled to commit suicide, or compelled to take such an extreme step, then the people who are behind this act can be liable for abatement of suicide. Okay, that is basically instigating others to commit suicide. But the question is that if a creditor has loaned a certain amount of money to a debtor, okay, if a money lender gives somebody a certain amount of money as a loan amount, then if he reminds that person for getting the money back, or if he you know uh, keeps chasing him, or if he even if it threatens him of lawful consequences, of legal consequences of not paying back the loan, then such behavior in itself cannot amount to instigation to commit suicide or abetment of committing suicide. Right? So the court has clarified that a creditor's pursuit of their own money, what is important here is through lawful means. I definitely expect a legal reasoning question from this part. They can definitely ask you in the passage that, what are the lawful means, what are unlawful means. And I am sure that you have read so much law already that you would definitely have an idea what exactly lawful means referred to, what is not lawful. So if only the pursuit is lawful, then it does not constitute instigation or abetment under the law, right? So this was the real case where the creditor was making phone calls to the debtor to demand the return of money, which is a lawful act. And even if such demands are, they look like they are not right, but they are eventually very right. Even if, I'll add one thing also, even if there was a legal threat by the creditor that I will file a civil suit in the relevant court of law if you do not pay my money back. And if he actually ends up filing such case, despite that, it does not become a ground of abatement of suicide because everything, whatever is being done lawfully, legally, and in a lawful manner. Correct? So, what matters is not what has been done, but how it has been executed. Okay. Now this is important again, becomes an area where reasoning of law can be tested. So the requirement is that there should be material here refers to evidence indicating the deceased was beaten or physically assaulted to return, right? So now you see the distinction. अगर इस तरह का कोई activity है where he was beaten or physically assaulted, so now that becomes a violent activity, and become a violent activity, it becomes unlawful, right? And when the moment it becomes unlawful, that very moment it might amount to instigation. Only lawful acts are permitted, unlawful acts are not permitted. So the observation is in the absence of physical violence or any coercive threats, a mere verbal or telephonic demand is not a bad. Very, very appropriate judicial statement has been made by the court, and it is definitely going to to affect the future cases as well. But for your purpose, for your CLAT examination purpose, yes, you should definitely understand that what is instigation, what is unlawful instigation, when it will amount to abetment, when it will not amount to abetment. You should know all these cases. You should also probably read more about abetment of any crime. Abetment of suicide is just a part of abetment of a crime, which is a larger, which has a larger ambit to cover. Okay, the rest of the part is not very relevant here. You can skip that. The next one is an interesting case. Again, take a look, and then I'll explain. So this case it has arisen out of this movie Kahani 2, which was quite a popular movie. And there's this man who claims that the story of the movie, the script of the movie, was based on his work, right? So it's a dispute of essentially copyright. Now, look at this news from two angles. The first angle is that you can be tested on the law of copyright. Okay, you can be tested on what is copyright law, what are the laws in India related to that, uh, and number two, you can be tested particularly on what happened in this case. All right. So you see, so the court has quashed a criminal case. Firstly, in how does a court quash a criminal case? Well, the court has power to quash any FIR, any criminal case if it is found that to continue such a case is not justified, or to continue such a case will be injustice, because probably the court has found some evidence, uh, which suggests that the case is not true, right? So in that case, the court has got power to quash the case, which means it will cancel the proceedings, and the proceedings will not continue. Okay. So the case was against his director Sudhir Ghosh, and it was alleged that his film was based on a stolen script. All right. So in copyright, what happens is, suppose there are two people, A and B, and if B has, let's say, made a movie. Okay. And if A says that I wrote the book came out first, then the movie came out. The book came out first, and then the movie came out. Then it still creates a piece of suspicion, an element of doubt that maybe yes, Mr. B has used A's copyrighted work without consent. That still may be a suspicion in such a case. But what happened here is, see, that was his allegation that if I gave it in 2015 and in 2016 the movie was made. This was the allegation, but the allegation was not established in the court of law. What happened is, the accused against whom the case was filed, he proved that his script was registered with the Screenwriter Association in 2013. Important, understand the date. The complainant claimed that he gave the script in 15, but the accused says, and he has proved it, that 2 years before that he actually had registered his script with the association, which proves the complainant's fact to be wrong, which shows that the complaint is based on false grounds. Okay. So what did the court finally say? We can see the court said there can be no infringement if the alleged copy was created and registered before the original work existed. The complainant claimed that the original work existed in 2015, but the copy was already created in 2013. So that demolishes the complainant's case, and the court also called it abuse of process. So okay, so this was what happened in the case. Now, what provisions of copyright law are important for you, from where you can get legal GK and as well as legal reasoning questions? Let me tell you. The first one here is Section 63, which talks about offense of infringement. And infringement refers to violation, or in other words, we can call it a breach as well. Now, it's a criminal provision. Any person who knowingly infringes or abets the infringement of copyright in a work is punishable with 6 months to 3 years and a fine. Okay, now what kind of questions you can expect? Like I said, so there can be reasoning questions wherein they can ask you whether the accused had knowledge uh, in the process of infringement or not. And in legal GK, they can simply ask you that what is the requirement of criminal liability for infringement. So the requirement is knowledge. Only when you do it knowingly, not unknowingly, right? Because we are talking about criminal liability, and we know, we have studied in criminal law that mens rea and actus reus form two components of the crime, without which liabilities cannot be imposed. Correct? So, yeah, this section 63 becomes important. Now the question is, do you need to remember 63? No, you don't need to remember section 63, but just need to know the gist of it. And the gist is knowledge in the process of infringement. That means you know that you are using a work which has been created by somebody else. That's it. The simple awareness will make you liable under section 63. Then we have section 13, which talks about in what areas copyright is available. Now, this again is important for both legal reasoning and legal GK perspective, because they can always ask you what are the categories. So you need to remember that original, whatever is there, it has to be original. It could be a literary work, a dramatic work, musical work, or cinematic and artistic as well as cinematographic films. So these are the 5 things that you need to actually keep in mind. Even if you don't remember word by word, that is still fine, but you need to still get the gist of it. That copyright is basically granted for artistic expressions. Okay, artistic expressions का मतलब क्या होता है? Like you can see, all of them are artistic expressions, right? Some or other art form. That's where you get copyright. एंड जो स्क्रिप्ट होती है वो लिटरेरी या ड्रामेटिक वर्क के अंदर कॉपीराइटेबल होती है. तो आई सी अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल विद हैविंग कंफ्यूजन as to what is a patent, what is a trademark, what is a copyright. Let me clarify. Whatever is an artistic expression, whenever you see something is dramatic, artistic, or an expression of art, then it will most likely fall under copyright. Okay, whatever represents a business will come under trademark, and any kind of innovation, any kind of device or machine which is used for industries and for commercial purpose, that will come under patents. Okay, so yeah, we discussed questions or the areas from where you can possibly get tested. Now, this is it's not important to remember, but just to understand that generally the author of the work is the first owner. That means जिसने वो काम क्रिएट किया है, जो उस काम का ऑथर है, उसको फर्स्ट ओनर बोला जाएगा. ठीक है. अब ये एक लीगल जीके का क्वेश्चन बनता है यहाँ से अगेन, that whether registration of copyright is mandatory or not. Now there's a lot of myth around it already, because a lot of people believe that copyright को register कराने के बाद ही right मिलता होगा, but that is not true. Even if somebody has not got the copyright registered, तो भी copyright exist करता है. See, you can see registration is though not mandatory for protection. Legal GK का question बनता है, is registration mandatory for copyright? The answer is no. That means even without registration, even without a formal registration, you still can get copyright. The moment you publish your work, you get copyright. For example, I write a book and publish it. Whether I get copyright registered by the office of registrar or not, the moment I publish it, I have a copyright in my book. But then there are advantages of registering a copyright. When later on there is a dispute, you can always produce the certificate or the document and prove your ownership to the copyright. But that's all what its use is for, nothing more than that. Now the next part is, when does the copyright really get violated, or when does it really get infringed? Okay, so for infringement, it is mentioned that if you use without license, that means you don't have the approval, you do not have the permission, and if you do anything that the owner of the copyright has the exclusive right to do. Excellent legal wordings. If I am the holder of a copyright, if I am the author of a copyright, then all the rights that I have, if you start using any of those rights, or if you start doing any of the things that I am entitled to do, and if you have not taken my permission, that is where you violate copyright of another. That is where you infringe the copyright of another, right? So yeah, you can see that again. Questions from legal reasoning, passages, aptitude-based questions, and knowledge-based questions can all come up from this part. Then this is a procedural note which is on section 482, which is currently 528 of BNSS. It has been replaced, right? And this is the section under which the court is empowered to quash a certain criminal proceeding. So it is not necessary that once a proceeding has been started, then it will go on for sure. You can cancel it in the middle if the court is convinced with your argument. Okay. So this is it for now. From the remaining part of March, like I said, the first part is also available on YouTube. If you have not watched, please go watch it. I'm soon coming up with another session on current legal affairs from the month of April 2026. Um, do subscribe the channel already if you still haven't done it, and set a reminder for notifications whenever it comes up. You will get notified. Okay, I hope you found the session to be helpful. If you still have any doubts, post them in the comment box, and I'll later on reply to that accordingly. Till then, what you're supposed to do is the topics that we did today. Do a bit more research on these topics at your convenience, from your comfort. Why? Because CLAT is not an examination of memorization. Okay, it's not an examination of retention. It's an examination where you are tested on reading skills. So unless you read by yourself, unless you go through the laws by yourself, you'll not be able to read them fast. Okay, and to understand and solve questions, you need to read them fast, right? So I would suggest that have a reading of these topics at your home, and you can always approach me for any doubts that you may have later on. With this, I would like to sign off now. Thank you so much, and keep working very hard. All the very best, and I'll see you all once again very soon in the next session discussing April's most important current legal affairs. Thank you once again. Take care.